Hello, everyone. This is Bill Apter, and I just finished taping an episode of Count It Out with Mike and Tyler, or Tyler and Mike. They're brilliant hosts. You've got to listen. You've got to see. Count It Out. Yeah, I endorse it. They've got the After Chat seal of approval.
This is Wildcat Chris Harris, one half of America's Most Wanted. You're listening to Count It Out with Tyler and Mike.
Well, we are live, pals, and welcome to another edition of the Bill Apter Seal of Approve. Count It Out with insert name here, because Micah's still on maternity leave. And this week we went to one of the best guys in the roster, Coca-Cola Content. I always say your last name wrong. It's my gimmick.
That's okay. Most people do.
Contant? Say
yeah,
it.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Well, I got the nickname right, at least. I remember that.
Actually, you didn't, but that's okay.
I thought you were Coke. Oh, you're Coke Zero?
Coke Zero Contant. Watching my calories these days. But because, we're kicking it old school today, why don't I be Coca-Cola Classic Contant?
Oh, I love it. How about I go like this? We are joined by our Impact Wrestling correspondent. How about that?
I like that. That's good.
And I'm going to leave your last name out of it. Adam, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for jumping on.
My pleasure, man. And what's going on is I'm pumped. It's Slammiversary weekend, baby.
That's right.
And, for Impact fans like myself, this is one of the biggest weekends of the year, probably second only to Bound for Glory for some. For me personally, Slammiversary is the top pay-per-view of the Impact calendar year, as far as I'm concerned. So for me, this is the, that version of that other show's kind of 2-day weekend thing that they do. But it's better because it's Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, for those of you that are listening that aren't maybe not the hugest Impact fans, and I recommend that you stick around. First of all, shame on you, because Impact Wrestling really is putting on the best product. I do believe in, and I'm an AEW guy as well, and I do enjoy WWE still, but I think Impact is week to week doing the best product. The Slammiversary to me is kind of like their SummerSlam if you're a WWE fan, right? It's like the second biggest event that they do. I think Bound for Glory is kind of like their WrestleMania. Is that fair to say?
I mean, like I said, for a lot of people, they make that comparison. For me, I feel like they're switched. But hey, there's a lot of people out there that feel like the Royal Rumble is WWE's best pay-per-view of the year too. So hey, to each their own.
Absolutely. The good thing about all that is that we're spoiled with great wrestling everywhere right now in the world.
Hell yeah, especially this Sunday. Even if you're not an Impact fan, if you want to just check them out, you want to give them a taste, this is the show to do it at, because it is not just their biggest pay-per-view of the year, but it's a celebration of 20 years. It is literally 20 years to the day that they are putting on this pay-per-view. It is the same date, June 19th, 2002 was the first ever TNA Impact, or the TNA pay-per-view from Huntsville, Alabama, and where they crowned Ken Shamrock as their NWA World Champion. And this Sunday, we're going to see who leads Impact into the next generation between Josh Alexander and Eric Young. And speaking of Josh Alexander and Eric Young, I'm going to steal a little segue from you there, Tyler. You had a chance to talk to those two guys very recently, didn't you?
That's right. Part of the Impact press pass that they do. I was very lucky to sit down with Josh Alexander, with Eric Young, and D'Lo Brown as well, who has given me a new name. John Atlas isn't the only person calling me a different name on Count It Out this week. What do you think? We're gonna maybe throw to that right now.
I want to hear it, man. So yeah, let's play it.
All right, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna throw to my very brief conversation as part of the Impact Press with the main event of the upcoming pay-per-view with Josh Alexander and Eric Young.
And my first question coming up is Count Out with Mike and Taylor. Gentlemen, welcome in. What's your question and who you got it for?
Hey guys, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. D'Lo, thank you so much. Just before I ask my questions, I can see your shirt and the Count It Out podcast. We do recognize much respect for everything you've done in the business, sir.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
So I have a quick question for both you guys. Josh, I'll start with you. First things first, congratulations on your new championship win. Now that you are the world champion in one of the biggest wrestling companies in the world with 20 years of history behind it, how much pressure and responsibility are you putting on yourself to be a leader in the company and help the growth of the viewership? Are you looking at TV and pay-per-view numbers a little bit differently now, or are you just kind of going business as usual and letting your in-ring work continue to speak for itself?
I mean, I certainly feel the pressure as like the acting figurehead, as the world champion, as the first person people look to for all those things. But it's honestly, it's out of my control. I can only control what I can control. And that's what I do in that ring. That's what I do on television week in, week out. And that's why I said earlier with D'Lo, like every time I step in the ring, you're going to get the same Josh Alexander. You're going to get 100% of everything I have, all the effort, everything, every time. And I think that's why I'm in the position I'm in now. I think I'm a world champion because I'm so dependable and I'm so consistent and all those other things. But like I said, those other things are out of my control.
Perfect. And Eric, real quick for you, with the success of Violent by Design over the last couple of years, it speaks for itself. You can really feel the passion and the believability in what you three are doing. I was wondering if you could kind of take us back to the creative origins for Violent by Design and just was this an idea that you always had? How hands-on have you been with the creative? And what's your experience creatively with Impact Wrestling compared to other places that you may have worked in the past?
Violent by Design, I mean, obviously, I think anything in wrestling that's successful, it's a collaboration, right? It's not one person's idea or, a single person dictating. I think all the best stuff is done collaboratively, and VBD was definitely done collaboratively. There was lots of discussions about who would it be and who would be in the group and what I thought was right. And, very hands-on with Scott and all the people in management of, the picking the music and the vignettes that Eric Tompkins and Dave Zahadi, the ideas that they had and the verbiage, all the creative side. And that's, for me, is the biggest drug in wrestling. Obviously the big being performing in the ring, like that's an irreplaceable drug to me. It can't be duplicated, but the creative side of it has always been my favorite part. For lack of a different word, just manipulating people and convincing them that this is the person that I am and this is what I believe. And I think me and Joe and Cody and the entire team at Impact have done a really good job. VBD is a huge part of the show, has been a huge part of the show from day one and will continue to be. And for me, I mean, it is selfish, but the honest truth is I feel like we're just scratching the surface with what it can be. And the idea behind it, and we've touched on it some of the origin story and what it's really about, and it can go as deep as we want it to, and that's what's exciting to me. And obviously, being in a group with two people that you love and respect, Cody Deaner I've known for well over 20 years, and Joe I've known for a long time as well. I can remember him first coming around BCW, working shows for Scott years and years ago, and obviously not as close with him as I am with Cody, but Joe has quickly become one of my favorite people in the world, one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. And I get to stand ringside and watch him just do things that nobody else is doing, with a physical style that nobody else is doing, and just a way of being that can't be duplicated. So it's a really cool point in my career. And I said this in an interview earlier today, is I'm having the most fun I've ever had in wrestling ever. And Scott Demore and the staff and Anthem Sports have created a very special place. And I'm not, again, trying to talk for Josh, but I know I've read and seen things that he's saying, and he's just signed a new contract and is here full time because of this environment. And it is singular. And I've worked in a lot of places, and I can tell you it is not like this anywhere else. And the grass is not green around the other side. I'm just ultra proud and ultra happy to be exactly where I am.
I appreciate the time, guys. As someone who's a Toronto boy through and through, I've watched both you guys my entire life growing up. Can't wait for the show on Sunday. You're doing all of us proud in Ontario, especially representing coming up through the indie scene. So thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, man. That is your main event coming up. I can't wait. From being a fan of independent wrestling, the parallels, and we'll get into this in a little bit. I don't want to get too much into it now, but the parallels between Josh and Eric coming up through the scene is almost identical. These guys at both at one time were considered to be the king of Ontario independent wrestling. And we're going to really break down that match in a little bit. But first, we're not done with the Impact Wrestling treats.
What?
You, my friend, are you're like Scott Hall this week because you're taking over. You're like the Stevie Richards you're taking over Count It Out because you had a chance.
Just like Scott Hall, you don't know who I am.
But we do know why you're here. Impact Wrestling, right?
That's true. That's true.
You had a chance to help us out, which we really appreciate. And you had a really fun and entertaining conversation with Gail Kim. It has been posted on our YouTube page all week. However, we're going to throw it on here just in case you haven't headed over and checked that out yet. So what do you think, man? You want to let the people know about your chat with Gail?
This was an incredible encounter. It was a true highlight for me as a fan and as a podcaster. So I don't want to wait any longer. Let's go to the audio and let's hear it.
All of us proud in Ontario, especially representing coming up through the indie scene. So thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and absolute privilege to be sitting here speaking with a genuine legend in the business in every sense of the word. 7-time, that's a record, people, Impact Knockout World's Champion and Hall of Famer for Impact Wrestling, the amazing Gail Kim. Gail, welcome to Count It Out.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor for me to be here.
Let's kick it off. Sunday, June 19th, Slammiversary, live on ppv.com and Fight, an event celebrating 20 years of Impact Wrestling. As someone who's been a mainstay with the company for many of those 20 years, explain what it means to be celebrating 2 decades of a company that many in the business laughed off and didn't think would last 20 days, let alone 20 years.
Yeah, I've been, part of this company, obviously 15 of those 20 years. I just figured it out today. I was like, wow, I have been here for 12 consecutive years. And obviously I'm very invested in this company for a reason. And, just like you said, it's always been kind of a roller coaster. And I feel like we've always been kind of the underdog of pro wrestling always. And we've always come through. We're here 20 years later. And I'm so proud. We've been through many management, regimes, and I've seen so many talent come in and out. And, more than anything, I've always felt that camaraderie amongst our roster, our whole team, and the current roster and our leadership is of no exception in that time. I think I'm probably the happiest I've ever been, except of course, there are years of me being a talent, but this is a whole new chapter for me, and great things are happening just in general for women, not just in the ring, but now in office positions, what we call the office. But there's now like a Madison Rain coming into the fold, Christy Hemme coming into the fold. There's, people who are really giving a different voice. We're always trying to prove ourselves that we belonged in this male dominated business, and it's becoming almost a norm in a sense. And I love the direction we're heading in.
Me too. As a longtime fan, It's awesome to see the product that Impact is putting out week after week, month after month. It's incredible. And we're going to come back to your producer role in just a little bit, but I do want to quickly talk about, why you feel it's important that we have more women like a Madison Rain or yourself in some of these backstage producer roles. What is their significance towards the product?
Mickey actually just stated this yesterday, and I completely agree with this, that sometimes, when you have a male voice speaking for a woman, it's kind of different. I can never begin to understand how a man thinks, I can try to guess, and that's what it is, and when you see the lens of a woman through a woman's mouth or eyes or what they're feeling, it's completely different. And I think they've always done a great job. And now the men are basically propping us up and supporting us to be in these positions where we can give a genuine, authentic point of view from us that is real. And I think fans resonate with that. It's like when someone's not truly their authentic self, or they're playing a character maybe that is not something they're comfortable with, fans pick up on that. They really pick up on that. They know you're uncomfortable, so they don't genuinely connect. And I think that's an important thing. And Impact Wrestling has always been a great place, a platform for those who may not have gotten opportunities or opportunities or have been authentic in their career. And, you know, for me personally, that's been my journey. And that's when I connected with the fans, when I was given that opportunity to show that I'm so passionate about the sport of wrestling, especially because that's what I fell in love with, being in that ring and performing for the fans and giving them compelling matches and storytelling.
Let's talk about some of those compelling matches and stories that you've told. Huge part of the company's history. So tell us about some of your personal favorite contributions to Impact Wrestling over the last 20 years. Maybe a hidden gem fans can discover or rediscover on Impact Plus or over on the Impact Ultimate Insiders YouTube channel.
I think the one that's going to be probably expected, is Awesome Kong, of course. You know, that was the very beginning of our women's division, the Knockouts division. So we didn't know what it was going to be. We're just happy that we got this Knockouts division off the ground and got a title in there, brought in essentially 10 girls that were added to this already maybe tiny little 4 or 5 girls that were in this company, and not all in wrestling roles, because there's like SoCal Val, you know, people who didn't necessarily contribute in the ring, but had personalities, and they gave a position for everyone, and everyone, just like today, you know, we have a Maria Kanellis, we have people who are really good in the ring. But that would probably be, you know, the final resolution with Awesome Kong, a no DQ match. That was the first time in my opinion, I experienced magic, what we call in our business, where those moments can be rare. It's very lucky, in my mind, fortunate to experience that. So I never knew if I'd have it again. And I had that again with Taryn Terrell. Last Knockout Standing match was another one that people didn't expect. And, you know, it was incredible to be able to, both those matches, it was, you know, if you watch those matches back, and by the end of it, the fan reaction in both of them is what we call, from a wrestler's point of view, where we had them in the palm of our hand. And it's just magical to experience that, to have that feeling of energy from the fans, and you just got them, as we say. A ladder match for Taryn after that as well, I have to say, is on my top 3 as well. And I would say the last one that comes to mind for me is my final match in my career, and that was against Tessa Blanchard. So, you know, there's been some special moments, match quality wise, because that's what I care about, is the body of my work. Is, you know, because some people care about other things, what they want to accomplish in the business. It could be anything from money to matches to character work and everything like that. But for me, I want people to have everlasting memories of what I created in that ring. And for people to come to me and talk about those matches to this day is unbelievable.
Well, you're going to get another one of those unbelievable moments right now, because I was in attendance at the Rebel Complex for you and Tessa Blanchard with Mike at Rebellion. And it was, you want to talk about making it real, and when you can feel it, it's real. We felt it that night. It was an amazing matchup. Please don't just take it from the lady herself, take it from a fan's perspective as well. Go out of your way to watch that one again. Impact Plus, YouTube Ultimate Insiders, that's the way to go. Now, when you were actively wrestling, you were heralded as a revolutionary, someone who pushed the Knockouts division forward from an in-ring standpoint. But since hanging up the boots, you've managed to continue elevating women's wrestling and Impact from behind the curtain. Tell us about your role backstage, and something about the transition from wrestler to producer that you weren't expecting.
Oh, I mean, I think most people would think, because we know the wrestling business so well, you know, or I knew wrestling, that it would just be a snap, you know, so easy. It's actually I know wrestling, but being in that role as a producer is completely different. It was a new challenge for me, something I could start from the ground up again, where I had to learn, because I'm going to be honest, when I started thinking about retirement, there was a lot of questions I had to ask myself. And one of them was, what's my next goal in that ring? What do I want to accomplish next? And I couldn't answer it. I really couldn't, because I had accomplished the Hall of Fame by that point, and that was really the icing on the cake. And so I said, you know, the girls were already coming to me after they go to the producer and asking me my advice, and I knew they respected my opinion. And I just loved teaching, passing on the knowledge that I got to learn from other wrestlers along the way, or other people who were teaching me. And it was a natural progression. And so I went to Jeff Jarrett and I just said, hey, I would love to become a producer. And he was the one that gave me my first opportunity and gave me that ball to be in a women's division. He created that division along with other people like Dixie Carter and Scott Demore. They were all part of that process. And so he gave me that opportunity. I have so much to be grateful for Jeff, to be honest. And I will always be grateful and appreciative. And I remember saying to him, okay, can I shadow one of the other producers so I can learn, because I know I don't know this position. And he said, yeah, sure. And they threw me on a live pay-per-view. It was crazy. And I was like, whoa, okay. Felt like I did all over again, being thrown into WWE, and winning the title. It was like a kind of a same situation happening here of being thrown to the wolves in a sense, but I truly believe that's the fastest way to learn, making those mistakes and, learning from those mistakes. And I'm okay with that.
And of course, you continue to make history, recently announcing first time ever matchup at Slammiversary, Queen of the Mountain, 4 former Impact Knockouts World Champions, Deonna Purrazzo, Jordynne Grace, Chelsea Green, Mia Yim, and the defending champion, Tasha Steelz, in one of Impact's most unique signature matches. Now, was this something that's been in the works for a while, or did it all come together as a perfect storm of timing and talent?
I would say it was a perfect storm. I'm not part of the creative team, and I think a lot of people have the misconception that I know everything that's going, because there's a lot of moving parts within a wrestling company. Sometimes I don't know what's going on creatively. And so I was told I was going to announce the match, which was really exciting. But I think the lead up to that really was, the Ultimate X match. The first time the Knockouts had that Ultimate X match. Those girls, they saw the structure going up for the guys at a TV taping, and they essentially went to Scott and said, we want to have this match. And, Scott never doubts the girls, but he's like, it's a high risk match. You need a lot of upper body strength. Can we find the number of girls we need for this match? And all the girls just started climbing it to show that they could do it. I mean, listen, they fought for that match and they got it. And then once they delivered, they didn't have to fight for this match. It was like Slammiversary 20 is coming. It's an important pay-per-view. They just trusted them. They said, let's give them this match. And so it's getting easier and easier, as these things come along. And someone had just told me today that they interviewed Tasha Steelz, and she said she wants to do Lockdown. I was like, oh, that's so interesting, because I never got to do Ultimate X. I never got to do Queen of the Mountain, because those are almost a step up in terms of, steel cage matches have been done, and they're almost kind of going back to the simple, things that have been done, because they haven't experienced that. So it's very cool that the girls are doing everything the guys are doing.
Let's kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
We got Knockouts Tag Team Championship. Knockout wins Wrestler of the Year. We get an All Knockouts Impact Plus event. First ever Knockouts Ultimate X match on the same night that the Knockouts World Championship is the main event on pay-per-view, followed by the Knockouts Champion entering the Royal Rumble. And now, Queen of the Mountain, June 19th at Slammiversary. The Knockouts division has moved forward at a breakneck pace the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It begs the question, what ceilings are left for this division to smash through? What barriers are left to break?
I don't know what that answer is exactly, but I've been asking, a lot of people ask me that with what's the next thing for females? And I said, it's not necessarily about the women in the ring and doing all those things, because we know they can do that. What we're just talking about, having other women being in management positions to be able to have another lens, because it's always been a very male dominated way in how they translate what a woman would feel or think or say. And so they did, a pretty good job, but I think it just expands our horizons in terms of what we can do creatively, think outside the box and just go down more avenues essentially. And I think it's great. And eventually, I brought this up in the past. I would love for, women are getting paid much better now for sure. But I still think we can work in that area, and we can make it so it's essentially a normal thing. If a woman is going to main event a huge pay-per-view, I think she should get paid the same amount as a man that's going to main event.
I'll tell you something. When I'm ordering a pay-per-view from Impact, if I'm going to see them live, the knockouts are the ones getting my dollars. So, it's a big reason why fans like myself are watching every Thursday on Access or Fight Network here in Canada or worldwide on YouTube. You find yourself in a unique position of having been part of this division for the better part of these 20 years. So what is it about this current crop of knockouts that sets them apart from not only their predecessors, but from other companies' women's divisions?
I mean, listen, when I started out, I was looking up to a small group of women, the Trishas, Lisa, I call her, Victoria, Litas, all these people, Molly Hollies, and that was like a small group of girls. And then they inspire this next generation, who is me, and the knockouts. And then I always hear from the girls who are in the locker room now, we wanted to be knockouts. We watched you guys because you guys were doing something. We had women's wrestling for years before it really became popular again. And so now these girls are inspiring. There's hundreds of girls out there. There's so much talent out there. It's incredible. And I hear the same thing. We want to be a knockout. We want to be a knockout because this company has always utilized, if you're on our roster, you're going to be utilized, and girls know that. And they see that there's so many talent. We have about 20 girls right now, and they're all talented. Of course, everybody likes this open door, forbidden door kind of thing. But we don't even need that because we have such a deep roster right now that when people say, I want to see, say Deanna face Britt Baker, I'm like, well, Deanna hasn't faced everyone in our locker room yet, and those will be incredible matches in itself. So I think that that's great. And I mean, I think it was one of the pay-per-views maybe 2 months ago, we had 4 knockouts matches on the pay-per-view between the pre-show and the actual pay-per-view. I was like, that's incredible. And I just love that. It's such a great feeling because I obviously love wrestling in general, but I have my heart towards women's wrestling in a lot of ways, right? Yeah.
And completely understandable. We have shown the ladies a lot of love during this interview, but I do want to quickly touch on one last thing, which is the main event of Slammiversary. There's a ton of great matches to look forward to, but I do want to talk about the main event specifically. Impact World Champion Josh Alexander defends his title against the leader of Violent by Design, Eric Young. Mm-hmm. It's the marquee match, and it's meant to honor both where Impact has been and showcase where it's going. Possibly the most important main event in Impact history, and it's got 2 Canadians in it. Yeah! As a fellow Canuck, that has to make you feel at least a small sense of pride. Why do you think wrestling is so important to us here in the Great White North?
A large sense of pride. I mean, I always say Canadians, it's in the water. We have the best wrestlers out there. We just love wrestling. And EY is just Eric. I always call him EY, Eric Young, because I've known him since the beginning of my career. That guy is a machine to this day. I was just talking about how the fact that him and Chris Jericho were the 2 wrestlers that went about 20 years without an injury, right? And then they both kind of got injured around the same time in the same year, I believe, but they both bounced back so quick and they both still got it. EY still got it. So if we're going from the past and have a generation clash and see who's better, I really don't know who's going to win. Well, the fans are going to win out of this. That's a definite for sure, because they're just incredible workers, the 2 of them. So I'm expecting a 5-star match, something that I will be blown away from. But I told Josh, it's like, well, the girls are going to try to steal the show though. So, you got some competition.
All the more reason to tune in Sunday, June 19th, 20 years of Impact Wrestling, Slammiversary, PPV.com, and Fight. Gail, I can keep you here all day, but I know you've got a very busy schedule. You are as in demand as Impact is right now. So thank you so much for joining us on Count It Out. Hopefully we'll have you back again someday. Enjoy the 19th. Don't forget to celebrate and show them that Canucks know how to party as well as fight.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, man. Adam, home run. I thought you and Gail Kim were lifelong friends after listening to that.
I think we are. Honestly, I think now I'm just going to call her up and I'm just going to be like, "Hey, Gail, what's going on? You want to hang out? I got a pizza password. If you want to use it, we'll just grab a slice." You know what? Honestly, I think it's the Canadian thing. I think it's just fellow Canucks and fellow wrestling fans. If you're a Canadian wrestling fan, you just have this thing where, like, I'll give you a great example. I was doing groceries last weekend, and there was this guy, and we do the curbside pickup, and there was a guy in the spot next to me, not next to me, excuse me, across from me. And he walked out to go around to his trunk, and he had a Samoa Joe t-shirt on, and I had my Impact hat on, and I just gave him a look, and he just, gave me the nod back. And I was like, that's right, man. Canadian wrestling fans, we know.
Absolutely. I will tell you, a couple of our other colleagues from Count It Out and some friends of ours reached out to me and they wanted me to let you know what a great job you did with Gail. And I absolutely agree with it. So fantastic stuff, man. And I think that we shouldn't waste any more time.
Now, wait a second. That's very kind of you to say that. A lot of colleagues reached out to you. But what did Rob think? That's the only one that matters here. What did Rob think of the interview?
We will find out as soon as Rob messages me, and I know he will. And we love you, Rob. That's it. If Rob gives you the thumbs up, then we'll invite you back in again. All right.
Okay. All right. That's a deal.
So yeah, I think it's time that we jump right in. Then what do you think? You want to get in? You want to run down this card a little bit?
I mean, look, we've been talking about Slammiversary nonstop. I've heard, Alexander talk about it, Young talk about it, Kim talk about it. I want to talk about Slammiversary. God darn it.
Well, and you also have a list to get to as well, too, right? Absolutely. So we're all Impact Wrestling this week. You're gonna
taking over.
you're gonna be counting down the top 7 Impact homegrown talent. Is that correct?
Yeah, homegrown heroes, baby. Gotta love that alliteration.
Absolutely. Well, we'll run down some of the marquee matches on the card here. Well, we won't go into great detail on everything, but some of the big
talk
ones
about
here.
Who we think's going to win, some expectations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff fans like to talk about.
I actually want to start on the pre-show, though, believe it or not. And
so do I.
Something I'm really excited and really happy that they're doing is that they're bringing back the Reverse Battle Royal, and I love the way that they're marketing this. They're marketing it as, well, for celebrating 20 years, not everything we did was a home run. I think this is genius. I think this is going to be really entertaining.
Me too. And, I was curious if they were going to do a gauntlet for the gold kind of, or like a call your shot type of battle royal to get everybody else on the card. But, they did a gauntlet to set up the main event. And the call your shot thing has kind of become a Bound for Glory thing. So I wasn't sure what they were going to do. This is an absolutely fantastic way to get everybody on the card in a fun way that also honors the past. I love that they're being tongue-in-cheek about it. But look, as I said on your anniversary show, and as I said the last time I was on here talking about Impact Wrestling, I don't think the Reverse Battle Royal is that bad. I mean, it's a silly concept, yes, but you know what? Impact Wrestling has always been about innovating and taking risks, and they did that. And honestly, if you watch the first one is pretty silly. Go back and watch the second one. It's not that bad. Honest, if you just sit back with some popcorn and enjoy it and be like, hey, I know that guy. Hey, I know that guy. That's a cool spot. I think you're going to have a good time with it. And I think it's a good way to have a lot of fun on the card.
What I think is really good about it is the way that they're marketing it, though. Because I do think that the first time around it was a big miss. But the fact that they're marketing it as a joke now makes me want to watch this even more. Because I think they're going to cater it to being an entertaining instead of serious repercussions for a Reverse Battle Royal. I think this is going to be awesome. I think this is going to be really fun, and it's actually like in my top 3 matches that I'm looking forward to on the card.
That's fantastic. I love that idea. And I mean, what a great way to introduce people, right? Impact Wrestling, as we always used to joke about it, the murder mystery wrestling promotion. And there is an innate silliness to some of the stuff that Impact does, but at the same time, that's kind of what makes it awesome. I love Wrestle House. I'm going to remember Wrestle House more than I am a lot of gimmicks and angles that I've seen in quote unquote serious wrestling in the last 20 years. I love the Undead Realm stuff. Let's be honest, the Broken Hardy stuff was initiated in Impact Wrestling, and it became one of the most, imitated match styles, especially during the pandemic. And you don't get those big highs without taking the risks and rolling the dice. And I love that they're honoring that as well. Absolutely. Now, I will say this. If you think about it as kind of like a fun thing, a jokey thing, I'll say this, though. The guy that I'm pegging to win this, and of course, as of this recording, the participants have yet to be announced, I think the person who's going to win it is no joke whatsoever. I think this is going to be a way to showcase Steve Macklin, and I think Macklin's going to be your big winner.
That's not bad. I'm hoping that guys like Johnny Swinger get a spot here, just because, you know, like the comedy stuff. I would not be surprised to see a Shark Boy participation in a match like this.
I think we're definitely going to have some names from the past show up as a little homage as well.
Let's keep our fingers crossed for D-Ray 3000, right?
Oh, yeah, baby. As he used to say, cops is the shit. And that's only a joke for 3 people out there, but those 3 people are going to love me for it.
Well, let's in the other pre-show match, we'll just touch on it really quick. Rich Swann against Brian Myers. Unfortunate injury to Matt Cardona. I love the way that they've gone about this digital media championship here, where Cardona lost the belt but is refusing. He's taken it and given it to Myers instead. So fun little stipulation going into this match.
Now, come on, you're going to tell me with the kind of history that Cardona has given us, where he's often imitated his favorite moments and matches and angles from history, you're going to tell me that there's any chance whatsoever that we don't get a double title ladder match a la Sean and Razor when he gets back against Rich Swann? Come on.
I think you're onto something here.
That's where they're going with it. And baby, I am all in on that. Just look, you say Rich Swann ladder match, ticket sold right there. But then you add Cardona into it. Yeah, man, I'm there. So easy pick for me. Swann's going to retain, and he's going to take his belt back, and then Cardona will show up with his own version. Or maybe he'll put up the internet title, and it'll be a double.
Oh, okay. Well, I definitely hope that if that ladder match does happen, that Cardona has enough left in the tank to get his ass kicked by Roy Fox. But that's a different story for a different podcast, because we love us some Roy Fox around here. Real quick, let's talk about the Knockouts Tag Team Championship. We got the Influence, Madison Rayne and Tennille Dashwood, who quite frankly have been having a great little run as the champions there. I think they're kind of like the little unsung, underrated duo in Impact Wrestling right now. I'm really enjoying their work. You got the reunited Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie here, which I like that they're back together. I think this is going to be a fine match.
I got to tell you, I love Decay. I'm a big fan of Rosemary and Havoc as a team, but boy, oh boy, you should have seen the smile on my face when Taya Valkyrie came down to the ring and stood next to Rosemary. Those two together are one of my favorite odd couples in wrestling history. So the fact that they're back together has my heart just palpitating. And that's not just because of all the beauty in the ring. It's because of the action that's going to be in there. I love that Madison Rayne is going to be a part of this card. She deserves it. She's been an integral part of Impact's 20 years. Rosemary is one of the mainstays of Impact. She's been there for a long, long time now, close to a decade. And, you know, Taya, I think, is one of their greatest champions of all time. Tennille is one of their top talents. This is going to be a great match. I think people are going to sleep on it, and they're going to be shocked by how good it is. As for who's going to win, I got to go with my heart on this one, and I want Rosemary and Taya to win the belts, have a great big moment, and reunite those two, and we can get back to some of those fantastic sketches that they were doing before Valkyrie got incarcerated.
Yeah, you know, it feels like a good time for a title change here. I think these two are the right to do it. I think they will provide that entertainment on the TV, so I'm all for you on this one. Going to complete opposite here, you mentioned the beauty in the ring. Well, there's going to be nothing beautiful about another TNA staple match. The Monsters Ball match, Sami Callihan and Moose. Moose is coming off losing the championship. He's going to be fired up. Sammy's returned to the company. These guys are going to beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah, this one's going to be entertaining as all get out. Both guys accomplished Impact Wrestling mainstays and top-tier talent. In terms of who's going to walk away from this one victorious, I'm actually going to give this one to Moose. I think that Moose has taken or has given a lot to Sami over the last couple of weeks. It has been nonstop Callahan domination, which I think is great to reintroduce him and show him as a threat. But I think, if anything, Moose has proven over the last 6 months that when it comes to clutch time, he's always there to pull some sort of dirty trick out of his bag and score the victory. In Monsters Ball, I think this match is more suited for him than even Sami Callihan realizes. So I'm Moose Nation on this one.
I think Moose needs to win more over Sami as well. I know it's Sami's first program back in a long time, but Sami to me has like the Chris Jericho gene where it doesn't matter if he wins or loses because his character is so over. With Moose, though, Moose is really a guy that is a top-notch main event, upper echelon special player. And I think losing to Sami here would really derail a lot of that. So I'm with you again on this one.
Yep, I agree. 100%.
And, you know, let's talk about a match that I'm really looking forward to again. And I'm going to say this almost at every match, but Honor No More, 10-man tag, Got Eddie Edward, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, PCO, and Vincent going against the Impact Originals. What a great time to do this match. You got Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, Frankie Kazarian, and 2 mystery opponents. Now, to me, I think that there's 4 guys that I've got this narrowed down to. I think the best choice would be America's Most Wanted. I think would be really great to put in here. I would also like to see maybe Triple X as well. If you put Daniels and Loki in there, and it's kind of cool because you have that connection with Kaz as well, right? So I'm pretty happy if they give me any of those 4 guys. Do you think who's your prediction for who gets in that spot?
I'm also going with AMW. I think that it makes the most sense. If it's not going to be AMW, I think James Storm is almost a lock, just because he's done so much work with the company. He's still in good graces. And I don't know who else would be the other guy in there. It really could be anybody. Impact has had such a long storied history. And of course, with the wrestling business being what it is right now, just because some guy signed to somewhere else, just because someone's working for New Japan or AEW or the NWA, that doesn't mean anything. At this point, it just means, well, did you used to work for our company? Well, okay, come on in.
Yeah, absolutely. And like a lot of people are like, well, WWE is not going to let people in. We saw Mickey James in the Royal Rumble this year. So, it's
they've made deals with Impact before.
It's not out of the question to see a guy like Abyss slide into this role, maybe, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're going to see a main event guy like AJ Styles or anything like that. And on AEW side, I don't think we're going to see a Samoa Joe come in there because they did the injury angle with him. But
I don't know.
I think
I show up.
I would have been all for Joe coming in, but I know they just shot an injury angle with them, so I think that would kind of take away from that. So that's the only reason why I say that. But
all right, let me throw 2 names out there for you that I'm kind of here to get, because they've been rumored, they've been talked about. First one's Kurt Angle.
Whoa. He just
Kurt's
had
not
double
really doing anything with anybody.
He just had double knee surgery though.
Yeah, but it's a 10-man tag. Doesn't have to do much. Just come on in there, pull down the straps, put in an ankle lock.
Fair.
And if you want my number 1 huge pop, heart of hearts, one that I want more than anything, I want the Last Outlaw. I want Double J Jeff Jarrett to show back up there, because who would be more appropriate than the TNA original, the man that started it all, for him to come in, smash a couple guitars, and win? Come on, man. That'd be the ultimate.
That would be.
I'm still holding out hope that he shows up. Even if he doesn't show up to wrestle, if he just shows up to say a few words, give that man his flowers. Damn it, he deserves it after 20 years.
I would love that. If Jeff Jarrett is in, you'll get a huge mark out moment out of me.
They're literally in his backyard. Come on.
Hey, don't sleep on a guy like Bobby Roode either if you're talking the WWE end. But you give me Jeff Jarrett and James Storm, I think you're pretty happy. And if you want to really appease the crowd, give me Jeff Jarrett and Jeremy Borash.
I mean, he was part of a successful tag team with Scott Steiner, who, could be another guy that shows up for all we know. That's kind of the beauty of this. Like,
so fun.
The 20-year history of TNA has so many names attached to it that you really could be looking at anybody showing up. I think it's both safe to assume that the originals are going to go over, right? I think that's safe to assume.
I think so. I think so.
They could throw a swerve and be like they're going to really boost up Honor No More, but I think that they're going to want to give us a feel-good moment here, and I think it's a nice way to honor them. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the originals on this.
Yeah, I agree with that. A match that's really piqued my interest for a lot of backstage reasons is the tag team title match between the Briscoes and the Good Brothers. What is the status of the Good Brothers? Are they going to resign? Are they going to go elsewhere? I believe their contract is coming up within the month, right?
It's really a big question on a lot of fans' minds, myself included. I hate to say this because I like the Good Brothers, but I think the Briscoes and a lot of the other tag teams in Impact have proven that we don't really need the Good Brothers around Impact Wrestling. I mean, they're good and I like them, but if they do decide to go elsewhere, I don't have a problem with it. There's enough fresh tag teams in Impact right now that I don't think the tag team division would really hurt a lot from them taking a little break or going away for a little bit before coming back. That being said, if they're having a good time and making money with Impact, shoot, why not keep them on, kind of thing. More importantly than that, my question is, why did the segment that aired on last Impact not be this match? Like, did you see the segment where the Good Brothers invaded the chicken farm?
Unbelievable,
why was this not the match on the pay-per-view? Because that is what I want. I want Jay Briscoe driving a pickup truck and Mark Briscoe swinging a piece of metal like a madman and just hooting and hollering. I want Papa Briscoe in there threatening the Good Brothers. I want them chasing chickens and telling one of the Briscoes' children that he was in the Tokyo Dome. That's what I want, damn it.
I will I will touch on the Briscoes a little bit, or not the Briscoes, sorry, on the Good Brothers. I look at them and I agree and I disagree with you a little bit. I do agree with you that the Impact Tag Team division are okay without the Briscoe or without the Good Brothers because it is a stacked division. However, say what you want, love them or hate them, the Good Brothers are proven draws and people follow them. And I do think that, you know, we've seen guys like Morrissey and Jonah recently leave Impact. And yeah, it sucks to see those guys go, but the Good Brothers are needle movers. And I think them coming into Impact Wrestling brought a lot of new eyes to Impact Wrestling, myself included. That's about the point where I jumped back on with Impact Wrestling. I was like, man, like signing a team, a top-notch team like the Good Brothers, who are world-renowned performers, Impact's not messing around anymore. And I think having them on that roster with that Bullet Club connection, I think is really beneficial for Impact.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue. That's a really good point. And, you know, it really just comes down to, are the numbers and the eyeballs and the dollars that they're bringing in worth the checks that they're cashing each and every month? And unfortunately for, you know, rabid fans like you and I, we don't know that. We probably won't ever know that until there's a Talking Shop episode or a Talking Shop of Mania where they drop it, you know? So win, lose, or draw, it's going to be a great match. Two of the best tag teams in the world today. Yeah, I can't wait to see this one. This one's going to get rough in a hurry. It's not going to be pretty, but it is going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Real quick here, we'll bang.
Oh, sorry. Who's your pick? Sorry.
I think you got to keep the belts on the Briscoes here. I don't think a title change does any favors for anybody, unless, you know, I think Jay just had a baby that was premature, so maybe he needs some time off. But I mean, even still, they're going to do their tapings the next night for probably 6 weeks worth of Impact. So I don't think it matters if they drop the titles at the pay-per-view. I would keep them on the Briscoes.
Yeah, and I think the Briscoes got to get their win back from multiversus matches.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
and they're fresh. They're fresh with Impact right now. There's a lot of matches, a lot of different angles you can go with the Briscoes. And, you know, the Good Brothers have been the better part of 2 years dominating that tag team division. I think it's time for the Briscoes to remind the wrestling world what they're all about.
Hell yeah.
Let's talk about another staple match and one that you spoke to Gail Kim about. We got the Queen of the Mountain match, Impact's Knockout Championship with Mickie James as special enforcer. Tasha Steele, Chelsea Green, Deonna Purrazzo, Jordan Grace, and Mia Yim. What is your take on the King of Mountain match?
I like
Queen of Mountain.
The Queen of the Mountain in this case. I like the match. I think, you know, like a lot of things that TNA and Impact have done in the past, it was something that they just tried to make something different, something that hadn't been seen before. And I know some people kind of crap on it. They think it's convoluted or, you know, overbooked kind of match. But honestly, I like all the moving parts to it. I don't think it's so complicated you can't follow it. Go back and watch some of those matches. Like, they're not going to make a list of the greatest matches in Impact or TNA history, but I'll tell you one thing. They are really entertaining. They're never boring. You know, you always feel like something's going on because there is always something going on. A lot of good stories can be told in there. And I think with this crop of women in the match, you've got a real potential to be a show stealer contest. You know, you gave these women an opportunity to do Ultimate X, and they damn near stole the show. If the rest of that card hadn't been so full of A+ material, I think they would have stolen the show. And now they're going to get another opportunity. Every wrestler who goes on after these ladies had better watch their back because they have got the opportunity there. Tasha Steele, I think, is the hungriest wrestler on the Impact roster. I mean, every time she goes out, you can sense that she is out there just to shove it in everyone's faces. And not just from a character standpoint. I mean, like, she wants to be the best. And you can tell she wants to be the best when she is out there. So she is my pick. I think she is gonna continue to hold the championship after this match. I think that there is way more stories to be told with Tasha holding the championship. I could see them maybe putting it on Mia Yim as a kind of a big pop, but I don't think they're going to go that direction. I think they're going to want to let that story simmer and build a little bit. I love that Mickie James is there to add a little more nostalgia to it and add a little extra flavor or spice. I don't see her getting involved directly with anything. Maybe I'll be wrong on that one, but yeah, I just think that this match is going to blow people away. The talent involved with this is too good not for them to at least be a highlight of the show, if not steal it altogether. And I think the Boricua Badass is going to walk out still the champion.
I'm with you. I don't think it's time to take the belt off her at all. I think that she's got a lot to prove still, especially coming off that series of matches with Mickie James, where Mickie really put her over strong. You got to keep pushing it, you know. I'm not going to say that her title run hasn't been like blowing me away, because it's just been good so far. But I think that we have not seen the best of what she has to offer as a Knockouts champion.
I'll put this out there. I think if Tasha Steelz wins on Sunday, I think there is a strong case to be made that she is the best Impact talent of 2022.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that, man. I would
Won
not argue
Ultimate
that.
X, beat Mickie James, beat Rosemary, turned back challenges from everybody she's faced so far. Certainly, I think she could be considered the most improved wrestler of the year.
Yeah, breakout. I was going to say at least breakout talent of the year.
But
for sure.
honestly, if she keeps putting on the performances she's putting on and winning the big matches she's been winning, she's going to get my ballot for wrestler of the year this year. Like, she has been, I think she's a real dark horse candidate for that overall. So yeah, she's the one to watch in my opinion.
I do think Mickie James will get involved also. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that we're going to see a heel turn from either Jordynne Grace or Mia Yim and set something up with Mickie.
I don't think so. I'll fight you on that one, because I think Yim just came back. She's still super popular. Jordynne Grace is so over. I'll say this. It would be a lot of chutzpah, real ballsy move to turn Jordynne Grace at this point. But
I mean, she's like, unless you're going to put her in the title program next with Tasha, she's kind of just doing her own thing.
But that's what I love about Jordynne Grace, and that's why I don't think you need to turn her. Is she is an incredible utility player for both divisions, any division, I should say, because she mixes it up with the guys. You can put her with anyone in the tag team for the Knockouts tag. Hell, put her with a guy and go after the tag titles. Like, she is such a great utility player. She can do it all. Like, she is an MVP for Impact Wrestling. Like, this is why I love the Knockouts division so much, is because I feel like they really do entrust the women who work at that company with so much, and they kill it every time. They run to the end zone and they score a touch goal or whatever it is they call it in real sports. I don't watch real sports. If it's not men in their underwear pretending to fight, I'm not interested.
I mean, if men aren't in their underwear, it's not a sport. That's what I'm saying too. Also, just while we're on the subject of Jordynne Grace, her husband, Jonathan Gresham, Ring of Honor World Champion, will be in Vaughan, Ontario this Sunday for the Vaughan Pizza Fest as part of Destiny Wrestling, partner company of Impact Wrestling. So definitely go check that out. Keep an eye. Hopefully I'll be sneaking a picture in with him holding that Ring of Honor championship. I'm hoping to get out to that.
Honestly, any chance you get to see Jonathan Gresham live, do it. I did it in the summer of 2019 and it blew my hair back.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, a lot of the talent that works at Barrie Wrestling are going to be there. Von Vertigo, Flair's Lexi Nicole. So yeah, it's going to be a fun show. Santino Morella. But moving on, Ultimate X match, probably the most famous match in Impact Wrestling history. I think that's pretty safe to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Look at the lineup in here. Ace Austin, Kenny King, Speedball Mike Bailey, Trey Miguel, Alex Zane, and Jack Evans, who I didn't even realize Jack Evans snuck into this match. So holy moly, what an addition to that. In my opinion, I think it's time for Speedball Mike Bailey to get crowned the champion. I just feel like the momentum is there. His match quality's been there. This guy might be the hardest working wrestler, not just Impact Wrestling wrestler, but the hardest working wrestler. If you follow his social media, this guy is doing 5 shows a week. His WrestleMania weekend, he had the most matches on the weekend. This guy is putting in the work. The momentum is there. The people are with him. I think it's time to crown this man the champion.
There's definitely a chance that Speedball Mike Bailey could walk out of Nashville as X Division champion. I'll even go as far as to say there may be a good chance. But I think that the champion, as we know, always has an ace up his sleeve. And I think every once in a while I get a good one. And now that he's also too sweet, I gotta go with Ace Austin, man, who, in my opinion, I think is the future of that company. I think he is going to be the guy that Impact Wrestling will build around. I think he's the guy that's going to put that company on his back and carry it into the next 10 years. I get so much AJ Styles vibe off of Ace Austin, especially now. And with him joining Bullet Club and getting all kinds of great reviews from the best of the Super Juniors, he's got so much momentum right now. So I'll say this. If the plan is to move Ace Austin from the X division up to the heavyweight division, yeah, Speedball Mike Bailey, probably the guy to walk away with it. If not, though, I think he's going to keep holding on to it. Because, again, I think much like the Queen of the Mountain, I think there's a lot of stories to still be told in one-on-one encounters. We still haven't gotten like Ace Austin, Mike Bailey one-on-one in a big match. And I think you put the belt on the line, that's a good one. Now, Miguel, I've always been a big fan of Trey Miguel. He's another guy that reminds me of AJ Styles a lot in terms of his selling. I think he's the best seller on the roster right now. Very emotional guy, very athletic guy. I still kind of have some hopes that we might get a reunion sooner rather than later with one of his old Treehouse friends.
Possibility.
Which is maybe the only way that I would be okay with him not being like a big time single star in the company is if we get that reunion. But I gotta still go with the champ, man. I in my mind and in my heart, I think it's Ace Austin all the way.
Yeah, I mean, a great pick.
I guess we'll find out.
Ace Austin, and I've said this on our show before, because you mentioned and compared him to AJ Styles. Ace Austin, Josh Alexander, and TJP, to me, are our generation, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, and AJ Styles. In the series of matches they had, I think they brought the X Division title back to that prestigious level that it was during that time period. And I'm a big fan of Ace Austin. I would not have a problem if you're right on this one.
Well, again, if you swap out TJP with Trey Miguel, I think you and I are on the same page with that one for sure. But
for sure,
regardless, and no matter who wins the belt, the fans are the real winners.
And of course, championship, you said the belt, main event, Canadian pride for sure, especially if you're in the northern and southern Ontario regions. The original king of Ontario Indies, as far as I'm concerned, was Showtime Eric Young. I have pictures with myself, him eating hot dogs in the Sharon Arena on an Indies show before Indies were even a thing, with Tyson Dukes. And
that was probably his payoff too.
That was probably his payoff. Absolutely. And then, the parallels with, we got a run in. Max the dog just fell onto my microphone. He's doing a run in.
All the Ontario Indie Kings are coming after you. Tyson Dukes just broke down the studio door.
Tyson Dukes was not happy with me proclaiming him the king. Josh Alexander, though, is the predecessor, in my opinion, to Eric Young, because I think he's the guy that is the respected independent guy until he signed with Impact Wrestling. He kind of picked up that torch, and he was the guy that people associated with the Ontario Indies. So it's really, really great to see both these guys in the main event. Their upcomings are the exact same. The respect for the businesses and that their peers have is the exact same. And they've never touched before. They've never worked one-on-one against each other.
I did not see this being the main event for Slammiversary. Last time we talked, we had thrown out a couple of different names. Jay White. We threw out Eddie Edwards as a name. I think I even said Jonah possibly could be in this spot. I did not see Eric Young coming. Like, he just came out of left field for me on this one because he was so involved with the tag team scene. But as soon as it happened, as soon as he won the gauntlet for the gold, I thought, yep, that is absolutely the right call and the right choice. Because what we really have here is a generational clash. We have TNA and Impact Wrestling's, possibly one of their most loyal and well-known superstars against the man that they are clearly building as the flag bearer heading into the immediate future. What more appropriate main event could you have gotten from the people available on this roster? And I think that these two guys are going to give everything that they have for this match, because I think in their minds, they know the stack card they are up against. And I think they know that there is an opportunity here to impress people and to show Impact Wrestling why they should be talked about in the same breaths as AEW and New Japan and the WWE with presenting the best product out there.
Absolutely.
These guys are going to give everything. and we are going to be the ones reaping the benefits as fans. Who's going to win? Again, I think the outcome is pretty obvious. It's going to be Josh Alexander. This is going to be a torch passing moment here, but fans are not going to care about the destination. This one's all about the journey, and the journey is going to be a bumpy ride, but it's going to be a hell of a ride.
I think this match is going to be awesome. I've been an Eric Young fan forever. I think you nailed it. This is the right guy for this match. The history in the company from all the way dating back to Don't Fire Eric to, ODB to Underwear, Superhero Eric. Like, the guy's,
let's not forget the
League of
Elite,
Nations. Yeah, like
the band.
He's done it all. He's taken good stuff with that company. He's taken shit with that company, and he's doing, as he said, as you heard earlier, this is his favorite time that he's ever had in the business right now, and he can still go in the ring. I think this is the perfect choice. I think Josh goes over. Josh is giving me like Bret Hart vibes right now, where he's come through Impact Wrestling tag team champion, then the X Division champion, now the world champion. I don't think it's time to take the belt off Josh either. But I do think that all of Canada wins here, and I'm very proud of both of these guys for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a celebration to end the night on for sure. So in case you guys don't know, you can order the pay-per-view ppv.com. You can get it through, I believe, some traditional pay-per-view providers as well, but the big one is Fight. That's how I order them. I order them through Fight. Please, guys, look, I know that there are other ways to get pay-per-views. Please don't do that. Buy this pay-per-view. Even if you're curious, show your support for Impact Wrestling. Give them the buys because they deserve it. They worked so hard for the past 20 years. There's going to be surprises on there that's going to make you happy. There's going to be matches on there. I'm telling you guys, this is a pay-per-view you need to buy. It's going to blow people away, and you're going to be sitting there going, man, I really should have invested in that pay-per-view because it's worth it. Trust me on this one.
Impact's batting 1,000 this year on their big shows. They have not delivered on one of them.
And they're not so big shows too.
Absolutely. Their storytelling every week is fantastic. They've created some of the best stars that you've seen in the last 20 years in any company. And I think that's what we're going to talk about right now. It's list time.
That was masterful.
You like that?
A tip of the cap to you,
sir. A tip of the impact. The M cap. There you go.
M cap. They're not all winners, folks, but you got to take your shots.
I should have quit while I was ahead, right?
That's
but
all right.
why don't you tell the people the criteria behind your list? Explain your list a little bit, and let's dive into it.
So we wanted to do something that honored the 20 years of Impact Wrestling. And one of the knocks that I've always heard, being a TNA fan and being an Impact fan, was, well, they don't have any of their own stars. They just sign a bunch of WWE, ex-WWEers, ex-WCW guys, and it's just, they don't have their own identity. But nothing could be further from the truth. And Impact Wrestling, TNA Wrestling, has done a great job of building some of the best known wrestlers in the world today on their own home turf. And I wanted to honor that today. So what we're looking at today is we're going to look at the top 7 homegrown heroes of the last 20 years of Impact Wrestling. Now, a couple of little conditions here, some criteria for the list. Number 1, in order to make this list, you have to have been somebody who made their name in TNA or Impact. So Sting's not on this list. Jeff Jarrett's not on this list. Kurt Angle's not on this list.
Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe is also not on this list. A lot of people might take some heat for that, but Christopher Daniels, both of those guys were guys that made their names in Ring of Honor primarily before they made their names in in TNA or in Impact Wrestling. So, that's a big part of the criteria. In terms of how we're going to rank them, there's a couple of things that, I took into consideration. The first and foremost, of course, is how big of a star did they become in Impact or TNA Wrestling? But also, one of the things that plays a factor is how were they received if they ever went elsewhere? Because that is a real good indication of, is this person a star or not? Were they successful once they left the company too? And you'll see that come into play with my list as well. So get ready to fire up them hate tweets. I'm all for it here. Let's see what we got. Starting off at number 7, we're going to go to the top. Yeah, as in the current Impact World Champion. Josh Alexander is number 7 on my list. Now, I know some people are going to jump down my throat immediately and be like, whoa, wait a minute. The guy has only done, a year as, the top dog. He was kind of a tag team guy than that. He's never been anywhere else in terms of a major promotion. How can you put him on here? Well, let me say this. That's why he's at number 7 on the list, because his potential is still untapped. He could end up being number 1 in a year's time if we were to do this list a year later.
Absolutely.
But let's take a look at, some of the things that got him where he is. Started off before he got into Impact, he was part of the Monster Mafia, which later morphed into the North. He was making a name on the indie scene, but then he had his injury, got cut short, and he had to basically start from zero all over again, building that reputation. Once he jumped in with Ethan Page back in Impact Wrestling, he was considered one of the better tag teams. And not only that, but he's got the record, the longest Impact Tag Team Championship reign ever, along with Ethan Page, and several Match of the Year candidates during the last 2 years of his time in Impact. Of course, we got to talk about that Iron Man match with TJP. His recent world title victory with Moose was, as far as I'm concerned, a 5-star classic. A lot of people saying that as well. His matches with Jonah, his matches with Minoru Suzuki, his matches with Christian Cage, Tomohiro Ishii recently. Like, the guy has just been on fire and is considered one of the best wrestlers in the world today.
Absolutely.
And I'm just talking, like, if you make lists or you have people talking about who are the best in the world, Josh Alexander's name comes up. And they're just not talking guys in Impact. They're saying he's one of the best wrestlers in the world today. He's up there with AJ Styles. He's up there with Kenny Omega. He's up there with, the Hangman Pages and the Drew McIntyres and the Roman Reigns. People are saying Josh Alexander's name needs to be in that conversation. So you can't sit there and tell me that he is not a star. And you can't sit there and tell me he's not a star because of what he's done in Impact Wrestling.
100%. I actually have him at my number 6 in my list that I made. So we're on the same page here.
I was worried I was going to catch some heat from you, right? Because I know how much you guys love Josh. But
no, the credibility that he's brought to this company, and I said it in our preview, the prestige that I think he's brought back to that X Division title, which I think was lacking for many, many years. Josh is the guy that I think Impact is really smart about building their company around.
In my first draft, he was an honorable mention. But for my second draft, I went back and I said, God, you know what? Just everything he's done in the last year, he's got to be on the list.
Absolutely.
So he's got the number 7 spot. All right. I know you're a fan of tag team wrestling, so I think you're going to be happy with my number 6 spot. At number 6, I've got LAX.
Wonderful.
But which LAX? In this case, I'm going with Santana and Ortiz.
Yeah, they're on my list as well. I had them at my number 4 spot when I made this list.
All right, so I'm glad that our mindsets are kind of syncing up a little closer than I thought we might. But this is great. They really weren't known on the independents before signing with Impact and working with Conan during their time there. And I know that when they first came in, it was kind of in a low period for Impact, so a lot of people don't even remember that they were kind of there. But the thing is that while they were there, they really established themselves as a top team. They had matches against the original LAX, or the OGs, as they were known, Homicide and Hernandez and Eddie Kingston. Had some great tag team rivalries with OVE and the Lucha Brothers over the tag team championships. Of course,
great ladder match at Rebellion.
That was, I was going to say, they main evented one of Impact's best ever pay-per-views, hands down, at Rebellion. If you don't believe me, get Impact Plus and go watch it. I'll fight you on that one. But I think where the proof is in the pudding on this one is when they showed up in AEW. When they showed up in AEW and they joined the Inner Circle, huge reaction. People knew who they were. And you can't say that it was from any other places that they've been, because Impact was their home. People knew who Santana and Ortiz was, and they knew who they were because of Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, that's the reason why they made my number 4, actually, is based on that criteria. Just the reaction and the success they've had outside of Impact. It's 100% due to Impact. And I mean, if you're standing beside Chris Jericho every week and holding your own, you're getting my respect.
Absolutely. Moving on to number 5, I'm going with another current roster member, the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo.
Okay. I like this.
So I know there may be a little bit of controversy here. Some people may make the argument that she became a star in Ring of Honor or NXT, but here's why I'm going to argue against that. In Ring of Honor, she was definitely there, and she did work a lot, but I wouldn't have classified her as a star. And I would definitely say that she gained a reputation as a good women's wrestler. There was some excitement about her coming over to NXT, but it really was not outside of the women's wrestling fandom. Like, people were excited about her going to NXT, but just because, she's a pretty good worker. But she was never in any main storylines in Ring of Honor. She wasn't a star there. She was just a good hand kind of thing. I don't think you could have picked her out of a lineup.
No.
Now, when she jumped over to NXT, she had some good matches in the NYC, but I would honestly say, if anything, her time in NXT kind of devalued her.
100%. She did enhancement work for the most part.
Which is another reason why I think she belongs on the list, because, man, when she showed up in 2020, she just blew everybody away and went on a dominating streak. I remember at the time, because this was a big debate between me, myself and my friends, a lot of people were questioning Impact Wrestling giving her the championship right out the gate when she had not signed with the company. I heard everybody say, "Did you learn nothing from Tessa Blanchard?" And I said, trust them. They know what they're doing. And of course, as we all know, because of the opportunities that Deonna was given, she did sign with Impact Wrestling. And now she's not only one of their most loyal supporters, but easily one of their biggest stars. One of, if not, the best women's wrestling division in North America. And she is a big part of that. Mm-hmm. Not only hanging with those women, but thriving with them. By the end of 2020, she was not only a 2-time Impact Knockouts World Champion, Wrestler of the Year. Not Knockout of the Year, Wrestler of the Year.
And well-deserving.
Absolutely. And not only that, but she is considered one of the best women's wrestlers today. Again, much like the Josh Alexander thing, the conversation around who is the best in the world, Deonna's name keeps being brought up. As a matter of fact, despite all the Forbidden Door stuff happening everywhere else, what is the biggest dream match in women's wrestling right now?
Deonna and Britt Baker.
Deonna and Britt Baker. It's not Deonna, or it's not Britt Baker and Charlotte Flair. It's not Britt Baker and Becky Lynch. It's not Becky Lynch and whoever it is. It's Britt Baker and Deonna Purrazzo. She's in that conversation. So, competition in women's wrestling is incredibly fierce, and Deonna has cut through that competition, not just in Impact, but everywhere. And a lot of that has been made possible by the platform that Impact has given her. So that's why I felt like she deserved to be on the list.
No arguments from me and no controversies from me, because I had to ask you guys if she was in Ring of Honor. I didn't know. So, I mean, yeah, she probably had a respectable run there, but it's not one that made, and I'd like to consider myself a pretty hardcore wrestling fan. If I didn't know you were doing something, that's list-worthy as far as I'm concerned.
I'm actually going to get your help to introduce the number 4 spot, okay? Because there's kind of a little bit of a a call and answer here. So I'm going to do the first part, and I'm going to want you to do the second part with me, okay?
All right,
here we go. Number 4, beer.
Money.
Hell yeah.
Your number 4 is my number 2. And I thought I was so clever by combining these guys together to get an extra.
That is the main reason that I put it on here.
Because I had America's Most Wanted. I had America's Most Wanted on my original list. And then I was like, I'm going to go with Beer Money instead.
The number 4, 3, and 2 spot have interchanged in each of those spots several times over the last hour before we went to broadcast. So this one was a hard time. But yes, I am cheating a little because I wanted to put both James Storm and Bobby Roode on here. Before they got on to Impact Wrestling, or TNA at the time, both were kind of independent unknowns. Bobby was doing dark matches for WWE. He was on their radar, but he hadn't been called up. Jeff Jarrett has famously said on My World, which is probably the second best wrestling podcast out there, that he couldn't believe it. And he said, like, why is this guy not signed? That we got to sign him. Roode and Storm ended up becoming tag champions first against each other in America's Most Wanted and Team Canada, and then together as Beer Money. But both Roode and Storm would also go on to become TNA World Champions and would both headline some of the biggest pay-per-views in the company history with genuine legends of the business. Yeah. Famously, Storm had a tag match against the Great Muta, which headlined Bound for Glory in 2014. Yeah. And of course, Bobby Roode versus Sting at Slammiversary 2012. So that's officially 10 years ago. These guys.
Is Bobby Roode, is he not the longest reigning Impact Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion?
I believe he does hold that distinction as well now, yes. And I mean, both of these guys were incredible homegrown talents for the company. Obviously, we have seen what both men have been able to go on to do with their careers after Impact. James Storm becoming a national champion in the NWA. He's become a little bit of a wrestling nomad. He's traveled from place to place. And I would say that he probably hasn't had as much success outside the ring as his beer money counterpart, Bobby Roode, who has, of course, got on to become NXT World Champion.
He's kind of glorious.
It has been a little glorious for him, for sure. But obviously, a lot of that stuff has its roots in TNA and in Impact Wrestling. And I want to say that these guys deserve that spot over America's Most Wanted, because while America's Most Wanted definitely became one of the best, if not the best tag team in the world because of their time in TNA, I think that if you combine these two guys, their shelf life was a lot longer than AMW. And I think in the end, they became bigger than. Storm eclipsed America's Most Wanted, and Bobby Roode, of course, I'd say would probably eclipse all of Team Canada, save for one, which we might talk about a little bit. But that's my number 4. What's your reaction to number 4?
I mean, if you're combining them together, I have them my number 2 just based on Bobby Roode's title run alone. And that that's like just taking James Storm out of the equation in general. Like Bobby Roode is a guy that is a top 3 player on his own. You combine that tag team together, and you especially look at James Storm, who when you talk about homegrown talent, James Storm is homegrown as homegrown gets. He was doing work at NWA Wildside. Bob Ryder discovered him and Chris Harris, put them together. If you want to hear all about that, you can go into the archives and find our Chris Harris interview. Cheap plug at Counted Out 7. Subscribe to our YouTube page. But these guys, they need to be on your list. I'm going to hear your justification for other guys in other places. I won't judge because I know how hard this top 3 is going to be.
It definitely did give me some trouble. And I think that's where we need to come in with number 3, because if you're ready for some trouble, well then, ladies and gentlemen, EC3.
Okay. See, to me, he was a WWE guy, so I didn't think about EC3. Now, he was a terrible WWE guy, but
yes, you cannot tell me that he was a star in NXT Redemption for the 67 weeks that third season was on there. They paired him with Daniel Bryan, and the guy could not get over.
Chicks in America, baby.
There's no way you can look at that guy and say he was a star in the WWE. No way. In fact, when he did debut in TNA, people were like, who is this guy? We don't know who he is. And that's the reason why I got to put him on this list. And at number 3, took the ball, ran with it as far as he could, and became a genuine star. Held his own against Sting, Kurt Angle, Bobby Lashley, Bully Ray, Drew Galloway, Matt Hardy. Genuine, bona fide legends. And while he was on top, dude never took a back step. And I think what I personally feel is one of the biggest factors as to why this guy needs to be so high on my list. When he returned to WWE, it wasn't Derek Bateman. He was EC3, and he was EC3 in every way. They did not change anything about him because they knew what he had become in TNA was more valuable than whatever they could have come up with.
Do you think that Vince knew that the C stood for Carter?
No, not a chance.
Absolutely not.
He's too busy chasing his secretaries and paralegals.
He's got to get that memoir, God damn it. I can't argue it, man. I kind of classified him because I had heard from WWE. I get what you're saying, so I won't fight you on this because I respect it a lot. I'm going to give beer money ahead of him still, but the point you made about him going to WWE as EC3, you can't sleep on that at all. And great stuff with Rockstar Spud. Got to throw that in there.
Amazing. Yes, of course. I wish they were still together right now.
I'm intrigued for your next couple because there's 2 names that I had on my list that and obviously I think our number 1s are going to be in sync. I don't think there's a question about it. Yeah. But there's a couple names that I had on my list that I'm kind of intrigued to hear about why they didn't make your list. So give me your number 2.
Well, we started this list with one half of the main event of Slammiversary on Sunday, and we're going to go to number 2 with the other half of the main event. My number 2 spot is Eric Young.
Don't fire Eric.
Do not fire Eric, and don't leave him off the list, baby. Before signing with TNA, like you said, man, king of the Ontario indie scene, but still a pretty unknown talent outside of Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
And becomes a multiple tag team champion for NWA and TNA, and holds their world championship in 2014 and, of course, in 2020. But where I think Eric Young really stood out and became a star was the fact that he could be and was slid into any position on the card with anybody on the card, and he delivered. He worked programs with Kurt Angle, Jeff Jarrett. Oh, the NWO is coming in. Oh, okay, let's just put Eric Young with them. Main Event Mafia needs somebody to work against. Cool, Eric Young fits the bill. Now we're going to give him his own faction so we can get all these international guys over? Sure, why not? Put him in a comedy tag team with ODB? Yeah, Eric Young could do that. Why not?
One of my favorite Eric Youngs.
I mean, the guy has been so incredibly versatile that when he showed up in NXT, everybody popped. They knew exactly who he was. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Impact Wrestling allowed the guy to get over by doing as much as he wanted to do. You know, we talked earlier about Impact Wrestling rolling the dice on match types and how that really separates them and makes them something different and special. But they do that with talent too. They let them go out there and just really explore this space and really let them be artists. And Eric Young is the kind of guy that has that TNA Impact seal of approval stamped all over him so that no matter where he goes, I think that's how people think of him. He's an Impact guy. He's a TNA guy. And that's how people know him. So, you know, I know that you could make some arguments that some other guys belong in that number 2 spot, but honestly, I think for just the longevity and the impact, pun intended, that he's had on that company and vice versa, that the company's had on him, he's got to be number 2.
I mean, I respect it for sure. I've still got Beer Money as my number 2. I had Eric at my number 4, number 5 spot, somewhere in there, just with the criteria of success outside of the company. People know who he was and he gained that respect from Impact, but Sanity, what could have been with them? They were booked so great in NXT. The main roster call-up was disappointing, but you look at Violent by Design now, and Eric even said it earlier on the show, the best time he's had in his career. From a Homer standpoint, Eric Young is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. He was my guy forever before he was in Impact. I remember seeing him in Impact for the first time, freaking out like, oh my God, it's Eric Young. Like, so I love that he's on this list. He absolutely deserves to be on this list. And I think he's one of the most underrated talents in the last 20 years in any company.
And that brings us to 1. And there could be only one, a phenomenal one.
Absolutely.
AJ Styles has to be the number 1 pick. I mean, I think even today, people think of him as a TNA guy or an Impact guy, despite the fact that he hasn't been with the company since 2014.
It's crazy that he's been gone that long, and he does. Yeah, you're right.
Breaks my heart a little bit. Honestly.
You're right, and he was like their Sting. You know what I mean? He didn't leave for so long, and he didn't want to leave either. I remember that. You know, I don't know how you don't pay a guy like him. You know, I know times were tough at that time period, but like, this is AJ freaking Styles, man. Like,
and I think that really goes to show why the dude is number 1, because even when the company itself didn't realize the star they had created, I'll tell you something, the rest of the world fucking knew.
Look at his Royal Rumble appearance.
Even before that, comes into Japan and on his first night in New Japan becomes world champion. And just, cleans out and just becomes world champion first night in the company. You think that they would put the world title on that guy first night in the company if he wasn't a star?
Especially a Gaijin too. Like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing in New Japan. Like, you know, unless you're a guy like Vader, like, or, you know, even Scott Norton was their champion, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, kind of. That was kind of controversial territory, but like, yeah, it does count. I'll give it to you. But for the respect the wrestling world has for a guy like AJ Styles, like, We could sit here and do a 7-part best of AJ Styles 7 countdown anything, right?
I'm down.
Okay? That could be the summer series every week. I don't think we could run out of a topic for almost a year to talk about AJ Styles. The guy is one of the greatest of all time.
Absolutely. And I mean, let's be honest. The guy's fought every major star in the company's history, some of the biggest matches in the company's history. And even today, 20 years later, baby, Royal Rumble, Bobby Roode, AJ Styles sit down in the ring together. What are the fans chanting? TNA, TNA, TNA. And there's a reason for that, man. And they didn't chant it when Bobby was in there with anybody else. AJ Styles.
Yeah.
Because he is Mr. TNA.
Absolutely,
so,
man.
You know, he is the greatest example. And even back when people were making fun of TNA, they'd be like, "Oh, name one guy TNA's made. Don't say AJ Styles." Because they can't deny it.
Because he's the best wrestler in the world always.
You can't deny it. So
Absolutely.
Of course, number one had to be the phenomenal one.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you 100%. I love the list. I love everything about it. There are 2 names. There are 2 names and like one like I wish I could have put on the list, but I just couldn't. But to honor Impact, you know what I mean?
Well, I do have a couple of honorable mentions as well.
Let's see. I had Frankie Kazarian on my list.
Interesting.
Just because of not only he was definitely made in Impact Wrestling, but the success he's had in the wrestling world after Impact, whether it be Ring of Honor or AEW, I just think he was at my number 7 spot.
So I'm gonna say something a little controversial, and I hope that I don't get too much hate from Kazarian fans, because I am a Kazarian fan. I love the guy, and I honestly think he's better now than he's ever been. Truly, I believe that. If you don't think I'm being accurate, go watch the stuff he's doing on Dark.
Yeah.
This guy's outshining the top performers on the cable television shows every week. He's amazing. I don't think Frankie Kazarian would have gotten into AEW if he didn't have Christopher Daniels and Scorpio Sky with him as SoCal Uncensored. Mm-hmm. And I think those guys really became stars as a unit in Ring of Honor and in PWG and New Japan. I don't think it was their time in Impact. I do think the genesis of it was an Impact with Bad Influence.
Yeah, because Frank, I don't think Frankie gets in that spot without being an Impact though.
Yes, I think that's true as well, but I think that's more of, I think it is a SoCal thing. I don't think it's an Impact thing. I think those guys have rode the roads together and it evolved from it. So I think Impact is the starting point, but I don't think they become stars until post-Impact. That's just my opinion. That's my take, and that's why I wouldn't have put Frankie on.
I'll give you my other name. Nick Aldis was just the success he's had, in Impact and outside of Impact. He's one of the greatest NWA champions in the last 50 years, probably. But he's a fantastic champion. I really think that's all because of Impact Wrestling as well.
So I'm gonna pull back the curtain a little bit here and reveal that we do talk about the list before we go on air, but not in a complete worked way. We don't like Tyler genuinely does not know who's on my list or where I'm putting the numbers, but we do talk about the criteria and we do throw names out there and we say, well, what about this guy? What about this guy? Would he qualify, or would she qualify, or would they qualify? Those conversations do happen. And you son of a bitch, you threw Magnus's name out there, and I had not given 2 thoughts to Magnus on the list. And then you said, oh, yeah, he's good here. He fits this. And son of a bitch, I had to go back and I really had to think. And am I going to put him on the list? Am I not going to put him on the list? And eventually I decided not, obviously. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. For as much as Impact Wrestling tried to make Nick Aldis a star, I don't think he did.
Fair.
I think he became a situation where they wanted to make him a star, but either the timing wasn't right, or he wasn't ready, or he wasn't at that level, or Impact botched it, whatever it was. I don't think Nick Aldis became a star because of Impact. I think Nick Aldis made himself.
Fair.
I think Nick Aldis is a self-made superstar. That is a guy that left the company, busted his ass all over the world, and made it his mission to bring prestige back to the NWA Championship. And I think that is the thing that has made him a star today.
Absolutely.
Is that people Yeah, man, that's the guy that revived the NWA.
Mhm.
That's the dude that brought the NWA back from the dead twice.
Yeah.
Like resurrected the zombified corpse of the NWA. That's, I think, his legacy. I
Fair.
don't think it's Impact World Champion Nick Aldis or Tag Team Champion, IWGP Junior Tag Champ. All good stuff. But I think that if he never did anything after Impact, he'd be a footnote in history. I think he made himself a star by resurrecting the NWA and carrying that company on his back.
Can't argue it. Can't argue it. The last name I want to say, they wouldn't make my list, but I just think if you're talking about Impact, people that were needle movers, I just want to give a little shout out to the Beautiful People. I thought they did a great run in Impact Wrestling. Wouldn't make my list, but they were the highest rated segment every week on Impact.
The thought did cross my mind. And the reason that I decided ultimately not to go with the Beautiful People is that because despite the success they found in Impact and in TNA, I found that they really didn't have the same effect elsewhere. And just not even in a, well, if they had done a little bit more with them, or maybe the backstage politics hadn't worked against them, they just didn't really do anything else. They couldn't replicate that same kind of success. And and that's the only reason. But they were stars because of Impact Wrestling and because of TNA. The only one that I honestly would think that I would place in the category of even considering would be Madison Rayne. And that's simply because of her longevity and what she's been able to take that starting point and mold it into over her career. So I do have a couple of honorable mentions that actually haven't been brought up by either of us yet. So I just want to quickly go through some of those real quick and just kind of tell you maybe why they didn't make the list, but I still thought were ranked high. The first one is one that I know Mike has been fuming about all episode because he brought it up in our chat and we haven't talked about him yet, and that's the alpha male Monty Brown.
Oh, okay. He's not list worthy, Mike. Get on that. He's not list worthy, but great talent.
I think that there could be a case made that he was a star in TNA. And speaking of stars, Lucy the Cat. I know that an argument could be made that Monty Brown was a star in TNA, but I feel like there's just not enough evidence to back it up based upon what he did in WWE. He came in, he definitely was, I would say, the first real established TNA guy to jump ship to WWE, but he just didn't do enough, I think, in either company to warrant being on the list.
As Randy Savage would say, cup of coffee. Ooh, yeah.
Another guy that I want to put on my honorable mentions is Abyss.
Yep.
Obviously, small following on the indies, especially in hardcore federations, really helped, I think, TNA stand out in a lot of ways because he brought hardcore elements to the company when other companies were not willing to be violent. And I mean, just look at some of the names the guy worked with. Sting, Christian Cage, AJ Styles, Hulk Hogan, literally like almost all of them Hall of Famers, or in the case of AJ Styles, will be Hall of Famers one day. Established Decay, had some of the most creative matches ever with the Broken Hardys. And of course, back in the early days of TNA, there were rumors that WWE was trying to pursue him off and on throughout his entire career. So why isn't he on the list then? I think it simply comes down to the fact that the guy never even left and got a chance to show if he had established that star status outside of the company. He did some spots with Ring of Honor, but nothing.
He's part of Embassy for a bit there, right?
Yeah, but I mean, they were just kind of spots for him.
If you were making a list and it was just straight up homegrown talent of Impact Wrestling and not their impact, if they did leave, I think Abyss is my number 3.
He definitely,
but that's a different list, right?
If people put him on the list and said he should be on the list, I can see where they're making their arguments. He was a tough one to leave off, honestly. And the last honorable mention that I want to mention is a guy that started off the first draft at number 5, and by the end didn't make it. And I'm talking about Chris Sabin.
Okay.
Gail Sabin.
Yeah, absolutely. You could group him in. Well, I guess Shelley kind of made his name in Ring of Honor, but
yeah, well, that's the thing. I didn't want to put them as the Machine Guns, even though I think most people would kind of list Sabin as a tag team guy with the Machine Guns. I know I certainly kind of consider him a tag team guy with Alex Shelley. But Alex Shelley, I couldn't put on the list because he definitely became a star in Ring of Honor way before he became a star in TNA. And, while Sabin, had gotten a little bit of attention winning the Super 8, he was still kind of an unknown indie guy. But he really did help define what the X Division was all about in the early days of TNA. And of course, revolutionized tag team wrestling with Alex Shelley, put on some of the best tag team matches in wrestling with Beer Money in their Best Of series. And let's be honest, there's not a lot of tag teams out there today, especially some of the ones that you see on Wednesdays, that can say, Motor City Machine Guns didn't influence me. Yeah, sure they did. Yeah. All those big time super indie tag teams that you're seeing right now who work that style, they can thank Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley for that.
Absolutely.
Defeat Bully Ray to become a TNA world champion and still one of the most recognizable stars in the company.
Yeah.
I just felt like when I looked at Deanna and I looked at LAX and I looked at Josh, I was like, I just feel like they should have those spots over Sabin. But he was the hardest one to put off the list.
Fair. I'm gonna rapid fire you a couple here, and then we'll bring it home. Petey Williams.
Petey Williams, incredible homegrown talent,
but nothing outside of that.
I don't. I hate to say it because I know he's not a one-move wonder, but I think at the end of the day, that's how people are going to remember him. Like, if you look at his pure TNA Impact Wrestling career, they're just the guy who did the Canadian Destroyer.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. He deserves better than that. But I think, that's unfortunate. I think what his legacy is going to be, even with everything he did in Impact TNA.
Awesome Kong.
Too short of a run. And unfortunately, not her fault. Politics played a huge part in her leaving the company. I think if Awesome Kong had stuck around with Impact and TNA, I think she would be on the list of one of the greatest of all time. Absolutely. And there are still people who could put her on that list today, even with the starts and stops that she did. But again, if you look at the way that she was treated when she came into WWE, she was a star, baby. Although I would also say that there would be people out there who would say, Japan, motherfucker. She was a star in Japan. She was a big deal in Japan long before she got the Impact in TNA. So I could also see that argument being made.
Last one, just for pure TNA and Impact, Don West.
Yeah, man. Original and a big time star all the way to the end. A star. Here's what I'll say. A star with the fans, but probably more importantly, a star to practically everybody else who knew him in the business, at least from what I can gather from interviews and articles and everybody who's spoken about Don West, is that the guy was a superstar human being. And I don't care where you develop that. That's what's important in life.
And, he's not doing well right now. So if anyone has an extra couple cents that they can donate to his GoFundMe campaign, hold on one sec.
I'll just fill them in. He's got to GoFundMe. He's having some hard times medically. But, Don West, he's just waiting until that 2.99 seconds before he kicks out. And sometimes, they need a little hand with getting that shoulder up there. So if anybody can donate to his GoFundMe and help Don West finally get that shoulder off the mat, because we all know he's going to, but boy, howdy, we all know that he could use a hot tag right now from the public. So if y'all want to stick your hands out and put your wallet in your hands and then stick it out, that would really be helpful for the West family right now.
And thank you for covering me as Max the dog chewed through Lucy the cat's harness. And I am recording outside tonight, so I had to make sure my cat did not run away there.
I think pandemonium here, and it's going to be pandemonium on Sunday.
That's right. There's the best segue. Let's go ahead and take it home tonight. Adam, thank you so much, not only for joining me today, but for helping us out, stepping in, taking care of the Gail Kim interview. Again, fantastic stuff you did there. Do you have any last words you want to say before we take it home?
I just want to say a couple of things. First and foremost, if you're going to happen to be in my neck of the woods in Northern Ontario in the next little while and you like Impact Wrestling, July 7th in Sudbury, Ontario, Rock Solid Wrestling, going to be part of the Italian festival there. Cody Deaner is going to be in action, former Impact Tag Team Champion. And also, if you're going to be in North Bay, July the 10th, Ontario Wrestling Elite is going to be presenting their first ever event. And Josh Alexander, the current Impact, and I still believe come July 10th, will also be reigning Impact World Champion, will be in the main event of the show. So if you like Impact Wrestling, check those out. And more importantly, if you're not an Impact fan, if maybe you were and your love for them waned, as mine did at points in history, but you haven't had that one show that has brought you back into the fold and returned you to the flock, if you will. For me, it was Rebellion 2019. And for any of you listening to this and you're not sure, I want it to be Slammiversary 2022. Yeah. So please, please, please support this show. Plunk down the money for it. You're not going to regret it.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And next week we're going to kind of keep with a little bit of Impact theme as well, because Mike and I'm bringing Mike back next week just for 1 week. We snuck this in. If you checked out our YouTube page, you see a clip that's up right now. We're going to be joined by current Impact Wrestling writer Jimmy Jacobs, former Ring of Honor 5-time world champion. An amazing conversation that he gave us. I can't wait for everybody to hear this. We're going to talk about everything from Ring of Honor to Impact to his thoughts on AEW to the list of Jericho to Vince McMahon and everything in between. He gives us.
You're forgetting the most important part of his career. I want to hear all about doing it for her. Doing it? DIFT or DIF
BINGO.
DIFH from the short-lived but beloved Wrestling Society X. That's the stuff I want to listen to. Even though I'm a huge Impact head, man, Wrestling Society X is fascinating to me. So that's the stuff I want to hear.
I will give you a small spoiler. Mike does ask him about it, and his answer may last longer than Wrestling Society X did. It was a fun answer that he gave us. So
I can't wait, baby.
It's in there. It's in there. Adam, do you want to do the honors of being Mike tonight and taking us home?
Boy, would I ever. On behalf of Mike, who's not with us, Max, who almost destroyed the show, Lucy the cat. You know what? I'm gonna make it extreme. I'm gonna call her Lucy the fucking cat today because she was the star today. And of course, Tyler. Go watch Slammiversary, and we've all been counted out.
Cheers.